Many of us recently heard discussions or saw videos about the Saudis' 200 mosques offered to Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the current president of Burkina Faso. Yes, it has been reported, particularly on the social media, that the Saudi Arabia's leader offered to build 200 mosques in Burkina Faso as an act of the Saudis' generosity toward President Captain Ibrahim Traoré. After searching, I finally found out that this information is in fact true, even though the Western and Arab media have been trying to downplay the information or label it as misinformation or fake news. Thanks God. This is the first time an African president, named Captain Traoré, was wise to turn down or decline an insulting offer from foreigners, particularly from the Saudis in this case. Black Africans should learn an important lesson from this. But unfortunately, the vast majority of black Africans continue to choose ignorance over knowledge. Whether you accept it or not, we black Africans disregard evidence or obvious things more than anybody else on earth. This is what we have become for the past 800 years. And this is the main reason people of other racial groups perpetually disrespect, despise, and mistreat black Africans, because they surely view us black Africans as naive, ignorant, stupid, coward, and non-sophisticated people. It is often said that if you don't have eyes to see, you have at least ears to hear, and if you don't have ears to hear, you have at least brains to think with. However, when it comes to us black Africans, the vast majority among us is blind, deaf, and dumb at the same time. Not only have the imperialist vampires reduced black Africans to submissive, weak, and dumb human beings, but they also have successfully turned black Africans into worthless beings. This is the main reason African priests, pastors, imams, leaders, politicians, intellectuals, academics, and soldiers are the only people on earth who consciously collaborate in the destruction of their own black African societies and beyond the expectation of their masters, sponsors, or mentors. This is why people of other races are convinced that they can do or say anything to black Africans without facing any consequences at all. The fact that African so-called imams, priests, pastors, intellectuals, and academics have also joined African so-called leaders, politicians, and soldiers in selling their countries in Africa to outsiders is awful and damaging. The African so-called intellectuals, academics, and a large proportion of ordinary Africans have also become worthless to Africa. Do you remember, in one of my videos here I talked about how black Africans living abroad frequently brag that they are successful while their countries in Africa are literally ruled by foreigners, looted by foreigners, and their so-called success in foreign countries is nothing compared to what whites or Chinese possess individually? This is another backward way of thinking or abnormal behavior that encourages others to continue disrespecting and looking down on black Africans. The leaders of Saudi Arabia are well aware that they don't have to do much to take over African countries and to lead black Africans to the slaughterhouse. They are also well aware that black Africans, particularly Christians, Muslims, leaders, politicians, intellectuals, and academics are dumb, ignorant, naive, gullible, and very destructive to their own societies. This is why the Saudis thought that building mosques will be enough to accomplish their goals, as this number of mosques can easily help spread the ideology of Wahhabism, quickly help indoctrinate black Africans, or make black Africans self-destructive for the benefit of Saudi Arabia. To the Saudis, these mosques will also serve as their bases or outpost for their colonial conquest of Burkina Faso and other African countries. The Saudis know they only have to put African so-called imams on payroll, and they will shamelessly destroy their own countries or do the dirty jobs of the Saudis. This is the sad reality in Africa. One might have thought the Saudis would be covert with their disdain for black Africans, but they didn't. This is why the Saudis even went further by describing their 200 mosques offer as an act of generosity of the Saudis towards the people of Burkina, especially at a time when President Captain Traoré is trying to feed and clothe his fellow countrymen. Have mosques ever contributed to the prosperity of any country on earth, or have mosques ever brought foods on people's tables? The relentless insults to the intelligence of black Africans will continue until black Africans stop being dumb and delusional. It is sad to say how imported religions like Islam and Christianity have been brainwashing black Africans, destroying Africa to the same extent Western education have. Mosques and churches in Africa are not places of worship but colonial institutions that have been brainwashing and indoctrinating Africans. Furthermore, it is widely known that many Africans, particularly Africans in East Africa who are Muslim, are black, or are mixed with Arab blood, don't identify themselves as African but Arab because of the teachings and brainwashing at mosques in African countries. In addition to this weird belief among mulattoes in East African countries, there are also many black African so-called Muslims, with no connection whatsoever to Arabs, who claim to be Arabs solely because of their affiliation with Islam and other imported religions. Sometimes, I wonder if most of us black Africans have our brains grafted onto our skull. Black Africans are the only people on this planet who engage in irrational behavior, accept anything from others without asking questions, welcome anybody without asking questions, forgive people who have been undermining and decimating them for centuries, etc. As African myself, who grew up and live in Africa, I was not surprised at all that the Saudis also had such audacity to make mosques offer to the president of Burkina Faso. In unequivocal terms, I must say that we Africans are the most confused, dumb, ignorant, and naive on this planet because of how we make others view and treat us. The most confused among us Africans are the so-called intellectuals, academics, elites, and believers because they have reduced themselves to sheep that cannot think but only act on orders. These categories of Africans also have never done anything useful for themselves as individuals and for their African societies as a group. The Saudis might have also figured out a long time ago that going to mosques or churches is more important to black Africans than farming, building, creating, innovating, etc. Do you know that the vast majority of black Africans overlook the evil caste system that exists in India? They do so because they think that the victims of this caste system of mistreatment of black Indians are not themselves or any member of their families. Worse, the vast majority of black Africans have given a pass to Indians to continue to practice the same evil caste system against black Africans in African countries. That is cowardice, and not kindness or politeness. As I already said, no African president has ever turned down any offer from the Saudis and any foreigners like President Captain Traoré of Burkina Faso recently did. This is why the Saudis, Arabs, and Europeans have built on every corner in Africa mosques and churches to undermine Africa and to easily propagate their supremacist ideology across Africa. Like Europeans, the Saudis on their turn view black Africans in monolithic term. Most importantly, they also have convinced themselves that black Africans don't need jobs to feed their families and don't need industries to exploit and process their natural resources like they do in Saudi Arabia. To the Saudis, black Africans must sit down and wait for their orders to go to mosques to pray all day. The Saudis believe that black Africans don't need weapons to defend themselves like they have been heavily and continuously arming themselves with American and European weapons. I will be waiting here to see the next African country on the list the Saudis plan to build 200 mosques. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.